माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवारधारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवारधारी यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजना यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजना यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजना यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा रदनत राधा रदनत राधे जय राधा रदनत राधा रदनत राधे जय गिरि गोवर्धन गिरि गोवर्धन गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गौरा हरि गौरा हरि गौरा हरि जय गौरा हरि जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद श्री श्री राधा राधानाथ की श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि बोल Hare Krishna. Welcome to all of you to our Sunday weekly program. Today we will be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam from a section where Queen Kunti is praying, offering prayers to the Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. It's the 8th chapter, the praise of Queen Kunti. And we're going to read from text number 26. I'll just say the Sanskrit first and then I'll read the English. Janmaishvarya Shruta Shribir Edatmana Madapuman Naivardhyati Abidatum Vai Twam Kinchana Gocharam. Translation. My Lord, your Lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Being materially advanced means taking birth in an aristocratic family and possessing great wealth, and education and attractive personal beauty. All materialistic men are mad after possessing all these material opulences, and this is known as the advancement of material civilization. But the result is that by possessing all these material assets, one becomes artificially puffed up, intoxicated by such temporary possessions. Consequently, such materially puffed up persons are incapable of uttering the holy name of the Lord by addressing him feelingly, O Govinda, O Krishna. It is said in the Shastras that by once uttering the holy name of the Lord, the sinner gets rid of a quantity of sins that he is unable to commit. Such is the power of uttering the holy name of the Lord. There is not the least exaggeration in this statement. Actually, the Lord's holy name has such powerful potency. But there is a quality to such utterances also. It depends on the quality of feeling. A helpless man can feelingly utter the holy name of the Lord, whereas a man who utters the same holy name in great material satisfaction cannot be so sincere. A materially puffed up person may utter the holy name of the Lord occasionally, but he is incapable of uttering the name in quality. Therefore, the 4 principles of material advancement, namely high parentage, good wealth, high education, and attractive beauty, are, so to speak, disqualifications for progress on the path of spiritual advancement. The material covering of the pure spirit soul is an external feature, as much as fever is an external feature of the unhealthy body. The general process is to decrease the degree of fever and not to aggravate it by maltreatment. Sometimes it is seen that spiritually advanced persons become materially impoverished. This is no discouragement. On the other hand, such impoverishment is a good sign as much as the falling of temperature is a good sign. The principle of life should be to decrease the degree of material intoxication which leads to illnesses. And Prabhupada described it as a fever in the purport. That fever is getting higher and higher. We are mad after more and more. If you remember, 50 years ago or 20 years ago, there was much less fever, right? There was much less fever. People were more satisfied. They had less than we have today, but they were more satisfied. We have much more than our fathers and grandfathers, but we are much less satisfied. So the fever has increased. And Prabhupada is saying that purport, the idea is to decrease the fever. Some material impoverishment is not a bad thing. It's a sign of spiritual progress, sign of an unhealthy situation being remedied. But not only are people mad after material opulence, I mean, everything we do is for wealth. Why do we want wealth? Wealth gives us freedom. I don't have to work. I can get other people to do all the chores I have to do, so I can be free. what can I be free for? So I can be free to enjoy my senses unlimitedly, or more than I can enjoy myself now. Now I have some sense gratification, but now I have to work. I have to get so much of money. It's never enough. I wish I could get more money. And that's why the thrust is on money, because money can buy us all these opportunities for gratifying our senses. So high is the fever for wealth and opulence and sense gratification that we believe that when we get wealth and opulence, then God is favoring us. Right? Even we take it to the realm of God, that if we're suffering and we're poor, then God is not favorable towards us. But if we're getting more, then that's God is looking kindly on us. That's our feeling now. That's what people think God is there for, to give us more wealth, more opulence, so we can enjoy more. So even they've brought God into this equation. And here Queen Kunti is saying the opposite, that actually when we're more impoverished, that opens our door to spiritual life. So that's how we have twisted the teachings, the pure teachings of God, and we've made our own philosophy based on material opulence. Actually, now Srila Prabhupada actually mentioned that religion only has a place in terms of economic development. If there's no economic development opportunity, there's no place for God also. So that's how far the thinking has gone, that economic development is dependent on everything else. Economic development is prime, and everything else works around it. But as we know, in spiritual practice, we have to develop our relationship with God. And now what Queen Kunti is saying is that material opulence is an impediment in that. So let's just talk a little bit about that. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, why is this an impediment, material opulence? Who can remember what Prabhupada said, why it's an opulence? I know it's hard to remember what people read. I also struggle. It was easier for me because I was reading. What Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said because we become materially puffed up. We become puffed up. Therefore, if we become puffed up, then what happens about approaching Krishna? What's the challenge? So if we are puffed up, then we cannot feelingly chant Krishna's name. So even firstly, if we're puffed up, we firstly feel there's no need for God. I got everything. I mean, literally, if someone came here now and gave you a 50 million rand check, you might leave the temple. You won't say, oh, let me stay for the program and class. Then you say, oh, I got other things I can do. We may do that. So, but we don't have that 50 million rand check, so we'll be here. That's good for us, right? So what Prabhupada is saying, that when we have these material opulence, we become puffed up. We may feel we don't need God, or we have no time for God because we're too busy enjoying life, or feeling we are God, or getting all our desires fulfilled. But Prabhupada mentions in the purport that even if we feel there is something to do with God, we have developed our relationship with God, then when we're in a very satisfied position materially, everything is very hunky-dory, as they say, then even if we're chanting Krishna's name, then we can't do it sincerely, and we can't do it feelingly. We can't call out with feeling, because we can't say, oh Krishna, oh Govinda, as Prabhupada says. We can't say that. Why? Because we're not feeling the distress. We're not feeling that Krishna is our shelter, because we got plenty of shelter in the world. Anything I want, I got a servant, I got a car, I got a friend who will do this for me, I got a family member, I got my job, I got my income. What are these things? These things are different shelters we get. We get shelters in the world from them, and we feel secure with that shelter. Oh, I'll get my salary, I'll do this. I got my friends, I got my family. If something goes wrong, if I'm sick, my family will take me to the hospital. The doctors are there. I have money, I can pay for the best health care. If I want to go for a holiday, I can just do it. If I want to eat something, I can just do Uber Eats, one click of some buttons, things are at my door. Everything is available. So this is what we get. So what happens when we have that opportunity? When we're feeling like we can get everything with a touch of a button with minimal effort, without even working very hard, then how are we going to cry for the Lord? Because Krishna is not expecting us to just chant His name for the sake of chanting His name. Why does Krishna want us to chant His name? Krishna is expecting that we are chanting His name, so what? So we can redevelop our love for Him. And in that love, one of the things is that He is our shelter. Not that He is one of our millions of shelters. Krishna is our only shelter. That's what Krishna is expecting from us. Krishna is our only shelter. So if Krishna is our only shelter, and we have millions of other shelters that we are taking shelter of, how is he going to be our only shelter? So that's why when we have all this material facility and material opulence, taking shelter of Krishna is much more difficult. It doesn't mean if someone has material opulence, they can't be a pure devotee. There definitely are examples, and people can definitely be pure devotees of Krishna with all the opulence, because they've taken shelter of Krishna fully. But for the average practicing devotee, it is a challenge, because the more shelter we get from other things, the less shelter we take of Krishna. Yet, if we had to walk out of here and we didn't have our job, we didn't have our cars, we lost our family and friends, how much more opportunity there is to be dependent on Krishna? There is lots more opportunity. How will we chant that day? I mean, all of us have been through some difficult experiences where we had no control and we could do nothing. Maybe a loved one was very ill, or maybe you were in a very distressful situation. Then you can chant very feelingly, right? Then we can do that. But when we're in a good position, we notice that we can't chant as feelingly. So that's what Queen Kunti is saying here. That when we have material facility, we obviously can't depend on Krishna fully. So we depend to different degrees on Krishna. And one of the influences is what material facility and material opulence we have. Therefore, material opulence is an obstacle. Talking about this, I'm remembering the three big things we went through, at least in Itaquini and KZN. I mean, with the rest of the world, we went through the COVID pandemic. And what did that do? It disrupted a lot of the usual experiences we have in the world. People were traumatized, people lost their jobs, lost income, people committed suicide. Why? Because the arrangements that we are used to in the world were disrupted and we couldn't do them. We couldn't socialize, we couldn't do many of the things we wanted to do. And that was one level of disruption. And then what happened? Last year in July, we had riots in KZN and Gauteng, and that created more disruption. At least during COVID, we could get bread and milk in the shops, right? During COVID, and during this July riots, you had to queue. You couldn't get the basic things to eat. Another serious disruption. And then in April this year, we had some heavy rainfall, floods, pouring rain, but we had no water, right? It was pouring rain. All of us were running for water with buckets. What do we do? So what happened? Further disruption. So we see that these arrangements in the world that we have, Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we see how all these facilities we are used to in this world got disrupted 3 times significantly in a large scale, at least in our lives, immediate lives, got disrupted. So similarly, we have many other shelters like this. We take shelter of the shops and all the other facilities, and when they got disrupted, we felt anxious because we couldn't get the things. Some of us would have taken shelter of Krishna and not being so anxious, but many of us were anxious because the shelter that we were used to was suddenly gone and we didn't know what to do. So, Srila Prabhupada terms these shelters or these facilities that we have in the world, he terms them fallible soldiers. Very interesting term. Calls them fallible soldiers. Because what does a soldier do? He gives you a sense of security, right? When the July riots happened and then we saw the Caspers and we saw the police, the army come with their big guns, we felt safe. Oh, okay, things are getting better. We felt safe. Soldiers were there, right? So that's what a soldier does. He gives you a sense of security in a difficult time. So we have all these soldiers of money, facility, beauty, wealth, education, friends, family, social circles. We have all those facilities. We have those soldiers who make us feel comfortable, that everything's going to be okay. But Prabhupada calls them fallible soldiers, because just wait for something to happen and then you see how strong those soldiers are. Look what happened in the pandemic. All the arrangements just dissipated into air. All the arrangements. In the riots, everything dissipated. In the floods, all the arrangements that we thought people knew what to do in all situations, it just dissipated. So those soldiers are fallible soldiers. Similarly, when we are on deathbed or someone is very ill, people will visit and say, I'm here for you. And that's a wonderful sentiment because they're there to help you and support you. But they cannot save you from death. They cannot save you. So despite their desire, nobody can save you or your loved one from death. So all these facilities, these comforts, these shelters we have, they are fallible because they will be unable to protect us in real time of need. But they do make us feel comfortable, at least, while we don't need them, while they are able to. But there will come a point where they are unable to give us that shelter. So that's what Queen Kunti is referring to, that we disqualify ourselves from spiritual life if we take shelter of these material things. So in Krishna consciousness, we have a very important principle which is given to us by our acharyas. And that principle is called Yukta Vairagya. And Yukta Vairagya is the principle where, as practitioners of spiritual life, given Queen Kunti's teaching, is the reason we don't just drop everything and think that we have to leave everything in order to practice spiritual life. Yukta Vairagya is a wonderful principle that allows us to take whatever we may have and engage it in Krishna's service and spiritualize it. So that's the special dispensation we have in Krishna consciousness. You'll notice in some spiritual paths, what do people do? They give up the world. That's also helpful in our spiritual path. But in our spiritual path, it is so much more practical for everyone to practice because we can take whatever facility we have, use it in Krishna's service, and spiritualize that item, spiritualize our relationship with that item by using it in Krishna's service. So that is the special dispensation we have, and that's why we won't walk out of here and leave our cars in the car park. Right? We will keep our cars, we will keep our jobs, we will keep our money, we will keep all the things we have. But in order to spiritualize them, we have to use them in Krishna's service. We have to use them in Krishna's service. So now, I have some money, and I like this really nice, I don't know what's a good fancy car that people like nowadays. I'm not a good person for fancy cars, but let's assume Lamborghini or something. That's what I remember when I was younger. I love the Lamborghini, so I say, wow, I just love this Lamborghini. I don't know, maybe it costs 5 million rand. Yeah, 5 million rand, I have the money. Let me have this Lamborghini. But I'm a devotee of Krishna, so I'll use it to take me to the temple on Sundays or on festival days. I will definitely do that. So I'm engaging it in Krishna's service. So what do you all think of my Yukta Vairagya, my engagement of my Lamborghini in Krishna's service? What's your opinion? Let you all judge. Because I'm going to buy one next week. So I want your help to say, should I buy the Lamborghini next week for 5 million rand and come to the temple on Sundays? Okay, at least on Janmashtami, I'll definitely come with the Lamborghini. What's your opinion? Any thoughts? Anyone has any thoughts? Should I go ahead, Mataji? Rangadevi Mataji has some advice for me.
Hare Krishna. Very nice gesture by using your Lamborghini.
Every day. Oh. So you want me to come to the temple every day?
Not just once a week, probably.
Oh. Sure. So basically I have to spend my time at the temple with all my money and my Lamborghini.
Yes.
Okay. She's putting a spanner in the works already, literally. Okay. Thank you for that advice, Rangadevi Mataji. So, yeah, that's very important, that we mustn't try to cheat ourselves and fulfill our senses, our sense desires, and try and make a little connection with Krishna. That will definitely help. Use it once a week. But the point is, my desire to own that car and enjoy through that car is way much stronger, and that's what I'm getting out of it. And I get attached to it. If someone scratches that car, how will I feel? Not because of Krishna, because of how I feel about that car. So we must be careful in applying the principle of Yukta Vairagya, that we don't just endeavor for things and then use it a little bit in Krishna's service and say, oh, maybe put a Krishna as the number plate, Krishna ZN. That makes it Krishna's. So if it's Krishna's, Then Swarup Damodar Prabhu will phone you and say, I need a car to transport the devotees to the program. Let me take that car. You will say, yes, use it. That's what Krishna's means, if it's really Krishna's. But even if it's not that, at least use it, as Rangadevi Mataji said, to the temple for your service and not for your sense gratification. So that becomes the principle of Yukta Vairagya being applied. So we have to be careful now, especially as devotees who are engaged in material activities to sustain our families, our minds, our bodies, our householders especially. We have to be careful how we play with the material energy. It can be very dangerous. Because externally, it can look like a devotee is the same as a karmi, as a person who's just a materialist. It can look like that. He goes to work in the morning, comes home in the afternoon. Yes, he chants 16 rounds or chants Krishna's name. What's the difference? It can look the same, because he seems to do all the same things. He's got a house, he's got a car, he's got a television, he's got internet access, he's got all those things that every other person has. So what makes his different? His difference is that he uses those things in Krishna's service to different degrees. And as Rangadevi Mataji said, if you can use it fully in Krishna's service, then it's fully used for Krishna. If you use it 10% in Krishna's service, there is only 10% Krishna's and 90% our sense gratification. So we see devotees, we study, we make career advancement, we spend a lot of time and energy sustaining our minds and bodies. We do a lot. So it's not like 24 hours a day we're chanting, or 20 hours you chant and 4 hours you do everything else. We work for 8 hours a day. We travel to and from work for 1 or 2 hours a day. We get ready for work and come back from work and cook and do the household chores another 2 or 3 hours a day. And we sleep for 6 or 8 hours a day. There's just very little time left for Krishna. Very little time. So the principle of using every available piece of spare time for Krishna's service is one. And then engaging the fruits of those activities or our facilities to serve Krishna is the other point. Some things, yes, we can't do it only for Krishna. We want certain things for ourselves. But like we have to eat, we offer that to Krishna. And that's how we spiritualize that activity. Similarly, we can use our contacts and friends, our neighbors, etc., to help give Krishna consciousness. Even if we are not good preachers, we can't tell them about Krishna directly. We can still encourage them in some way or the other. Yesterday we had the Heritage Festival at the beachfront. Who came to that festival from here? Okay, a few of you came. Yes, that was a wonderful festival, because you could have invited anyone to that festival. No matter what their background, what their culture, what their creed was, that was a festival that anyone could have come to. They wouldn't have felt out of place. There was something for them there. You could just do a simple thing, ask them to come and enjoy that festival. So that's how we can engage various people, various devotees, and various facilities in serving Krishna. So now I wanted to put a question to you to think about, and maybe if you have some thoughts immediately, you can share with us what you think you can do. So given Queen Kunti's teaching of how material facility is an obstacle to our spiritual life, and given the principle of Yukta Vairagya, which we talked about, engaging everything in Krishna's service, given those two things, and given that pitfall that Rangadevi caught me out in trying to buy my Lamborghini, that we can fall in the trap of not really engaging everything in Krishna's service, but acting like we are, but actually just gratifying our senses. I want us to think about what we can do differently in our own lives. What we can do differently in our daily activities for Krishna to be able to make spiritual progress. And the second thing is how you think this can impact the chanting of the holy name that you do. All of us, or most of us, I assume, do chant Hare Krishna every day, right? I can speak for myself, and maybe I'm speaking for you. I can tell you very frankly that when I chant Hare Krishna, I don't dance in ecstasy, right? I don't think, I wish I had 1,000 tongues and millions of ears to hear the holy name. I don't think that, right? Because we are not chanting purely. We are not chanting Krishna's name purely. But here Prabhupada is talking about chanting in quality. He said if we chant feelingly, we can't call Krishna's name in quality or call Krishna's name feelingly, and he talks about, that's not because of the potency of the holy name. It's not because of the potency of the holy name. The holy name, as Prabhupada mentions, can eradicate more sins than we can commit in all. He didn't say in our lifetimes, he just said more sins than we can commit. I'm assuming for all lifetimes. So that's what the potency of the holy name is. But what is lacking is the quality. That's what Prabhupada is pointing out, because we are not feelingly chanting. And why I suspect that I don't feelingly chant, and possibly it could apply to you also, is that I'm taking shelter of many other things, and I'm materially quite comfortable. And because I'm materially comfortable, I feel quite sheltered by everything else, and therefore I'm not crying for Krishna's shelter. Prabhupada told us to chant the holy name like a child crying for its mother. That's a helpless cry. There's not a child who thinks, I've got 15 other options, but I also want my mother. The child doesn't cry like that. The child cries, I want my mother because that's all I know, and that's all that will help me. That's how a child cries. So that's how we should be crying for Krishna when we chant Krishna's holy name. But, at least I can speak for myself, I don't feel like that when I'm chanting Krishna's holy name. And I suspect it's because I have these other shelters. I have a strong suspicion. That is because I have these other shelters that I feel are looking after me and that I'm comfortable, and therefore I don't need to cry for Krishna, and I don't feel like crying for Krishna. And therefore, even though I'm chanting Krishna's holy name, it doesn't have that quality that Prabhupada's talking about here. And these obstacles that Kunti is mentioning is most probably what is hindering my chanting of the holy name. So what can we do about this? It's not in the purport. And it's not in what I'm going to say. I'm hoping you'll give me some clues again and some advice. Your thoughts on what we should do to stop taking shelter of these other things. Feelingly call out Krishna's name, because actually Krishna is our only shelter. We know that philosophically, intellectually, we know that. He's the only shelter. There's a verse later in Bhagavatam where Narad Muni is instructing Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yudhishthira Maharaj had his elderly uncle, Dhritarashtra. You'll know from the Bhagavad Gita. He was staying with him, and then one day Dhritarashtra was instructed by Vidura, and he left the palace where Yudhishthira was taking care of him. And Yudhishthira came in great anxiety to him. And Yudhishthira Maharaj said, where is my uncle and aunt gone, and his brother Vidura? How will they elderly? Who's going to take care of them? He was so concerned. And Narad Muni appeared on the scene, and what did he say? 2 reasons he gave to Yudhishthira why you shouldn't be concerned. He said, firstly, you are in ignorance if you think that you can protect them. It's only Krishna that has looked after them all their lives, and he will continue to look after them even after they leave your palace. What was the second reason he gave? I forget the second reason. The second reason is, he said, every living entity, every living being, we are governed by time. We are affected by the 3 modes of material nature, and we are affected by karma. Saying that applies to all of us. So if all of us are in that place, we're almost in the mouth of a serpent. So if we're at the mouth of a serpent, how can we give protection to someone else? That was his other reason. So actually, even though we may think we can help others, we are powerless to do it because we are helpless ourselves. That was Narad Muni's instruction to Yudhishthira. That you're in ignorance, and you can't help anyone anyway. So, coming back to our chanting, our ability to take shelter of Krishna, and understanding that we are actually helpless. What should we do differently to at least help our chanting so we can feelingly chant for Krishna? Helplessly chant for Krishna, and not take shelter of these other fallible soldiers, as Srila Prabhupada put it. So I'm hoping for the rest of the time, otherwise the class will end there. I'm hoping you all will give me something to help me with this problem. Jai Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I was thinking of the Lamborghini example, and I just listened to a class a little bit earlier by His Holiness Kadambakana Swami, and he was mentioning the same example, putting a number plate. That's Krishna, and then that's Krishna's car, But he then made the point that there's 2 things to consider. How much I can use this in Krishna's service, and how much it's going to complicate my life. So we have to balance these things. If it's going to, like for instance, the Lamborghini, you have to worry about whether it's going to get scratched. You have to worry about paying tax on it. You have to worry about, all these different things. Then it becomes something that takes away from your time, which you could spend on Krishna. You spend much more money that you could have used in other ways. So yeah, we have to be careful about the amount of complexity that it adds to our life. Yes, we could use it in Krishna's service, but how much does it take away from me actually? And that's where Prabhupada focuses on the simple living, high thinking. We should simplify as much as we can and use the essential things in Krishna's service, not overcomplicate things. Yeah.
Thank you, Jai Krishna Prabhu. So, yeah, wonderful. How much we can use something in Krishna's service and how much it complicates our life by getting that thing, because it can take away. That's a very good trap that Maya has for us, because we sometimes think this will give us this to serve Krishna, and then we realize the complexities may not be worth it, so we have to consider that. Thank you, Prabhu. From Kadama Kanana Swami. Does anybody else have any thoughts, advice, help on this topic? Rangadevi Mataji?
Hare Krishna. So once, I think it was Gaur Govinda Swami, he said that we should cry, that we can't cry for Krishna. And, on our level, I think we should just chant attentively to start off with. Before we can cry for Krishna, we should, because this mind is so fickle, and it goes all over the place when you're chanting. So just try to concentrate and focus on hearing the Hare Krishna Mahamantra to start off with. That's a start.
Yes. Thank you, Rangadevi
Krishna.
Mataji. So we should chant attentively. That's our starting point. And hopefully we'll eventually, by chanting attentively, we'll end up crying for Krishna. And His Holiness Gaur Govinda Maharaj used to talk a lot about that, how we need to cry for Krishna. Cry. Even the men have to cry. Any other thoughts anyone wants to share on this topic or something related to this? Jai Krishna Prabhu.
Just related again to what Mother Rangadevi was saying about attentive chanting. The 10th offense to the holy name, it has that second part. So, to maintain material attachments and to not be attentive. So these things are actually, they're linked. The more complicated, again, you make your life, the more indirect these links are. Like, again, the Lamborghini example. Because the link to Krishna is very indirect. It's that once a week I take this car and I go to the temple. When you think about that object, then it's not Krishna conscious. But for instance, if you have a laptop, even if maybe you're chanting and you're thinking about your laptop, if you're using that for Veda based, you're using it for Bhagavad Gita readings, for taking notes on classes, that's a more direct link that can take you back to thinking about Krishna. But the more things that we have that are indirect links, we use things in indirect ways, then the less likely it is that we can focus on Krishna while chanting. So that's another point of the simplicity and how that relates to our chanting. The less things we have that are not related to Krishna, the less attentive our chanting will be.
Mm. The more attentive our chanting will be, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jai Krishna Prabhu. So, very important points. The more directly we can link things to Krishna, the better it will be. If it's very indirectly linked, then it can become more of a distraction because it's tougher to make that link. Like, for example, you don't have to have a Lamborghini to come to the temple. Like, you could come with other vehicles also. It will be fine. And with all the bumps and the potholes, the Lamborghini may be not so good. Especially on Janmashtami, you have to climb the curb and all that. Not very nice. So, yeah, so we have to understand what we are doing, why we are doing it, and then apply ourselves accordingly with material things. And I like that link you made between not having too many maintaining material attachments and inattentive chanting. More material attachments mean less attentive chanting. Naturally, it means that we'll be less attentive. Because material attachments are that. They're attachments. They're things that draw us to them. And once things are drawn, we are drawn to things, we naturally can't think of Krishna. I remember His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj used to say, the consciousness is like a laser point. It can only focus on one point at any specific time. It only can do one thing at a time. So you either focus on Krishna or away from Krishna. You can't focus on Krishna and not on Krishna at the same time. Like in computers, you have many programs open at the same time, but only one thing is being processed in one sub-process at a time. It can't. But it's doing it so fast, you think everything's happening together. Right? So that's how we multitask. We do many things fast, but we do one thing at a time very fast, so it looks like we're doing many things. So consciousness can only be focused at one point. But we focus everywhere, and then by the time we say Hare Krishna, we focus on Krishna, focus somewhere else. At Hare Rama, we went somewhere else, and then at Hare Hare, we come back to Krishna. We actually went quite far in time. So our consciousness can only focus at one place at one time. So that's important. Okay, if there's no other comments or thoughts, we'll end the class here. I was hoping you'll give me more help, but I've got good help. Thank you, Rangadevi and Jai Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu? Yes, please. Please.
Hare Krishna.
It's
You can hear. No, I'll just try and add something just so that the class continues because I came late. Sorry.
little louder, Prabhu. I'm struggling to hear.
Oh, I was just saying that I'll try and add a thought so that the class continues since I came late. Sorry about that. There was one time we were having this conversation with my father where I was trying to explain to him that I need to kind of set myself up materially first, and then I can go focus on my Krishna consciousness so I can be of service to the movement in whatever way. And then he was saying, he gave this analogy about a fool. He stands in front of the fireplace and he says, give me some fire and then I'll add the wood. And I was like, huh? But his point was that you're thinking that you're going to go and spend 8 hours a day try to get some material facilities so that eventually you can come back and be productive in Krishna consciousness. But what actually happens in that 8 hours that you are endeavoring for that Lamborghini, the amount of contamination that actually you go through there will actually push you further away from Krishna consciousness. So one of the easiest way to actually get it done and start chanting properly is you have to make sure that you maximize as much time as you can get in association with devotees. And I've learned that over the time is that the more I come frequently to the temple, then my chanting becomes steady and somehow feels better. But every time I think like, hey, you know what, I don't really need to go to the temple. Like, I have Srila Prabhupada's books at home, I have my bead bag, I can be Krishna conscious at home. But the material world is so contaminating that it just, whatever efforts that you are putting, it kind of dissolves it. Yeah. But if you're coming in association of devotees and you're constantly doing these things, for example, is you don't have a Lamborghini, but you are at the temple right now. And then as you're walking around, maybe you may see something that's missing, like, hey, that door is broken. But because you are in the association and you are participating, you're not just like a spectator in Krishna consciousness, then you feel that, hey, that's something that I could contribute to. So in whatever little effort that you have and endeavors, then you can actually do that, which is better than you staying there in the distance and hoping that someday you're going to be financially okay to come and assist, because that's arrogance. You can be out there accumulating your material, whatever, and then the day that you're supposed to resign and start doing your service, you pass away.
Yeah.
So since you don't know when you're going to pass away, just be in the association of devotees, and hopefully that'll help you to get more attracted to chanting and stuff like that. But it's not going to happen if you're trying to do it from the distance while you get your Lamborghini first.
Thank you, Prabhu. You raised such an important point. You raised many important points there, actually. It's such a common fallacy to think, let me set myself up materially. And I love that example your father gave about fire and then getting the wood. That's what it is. Many people think that, the temple needs money. The devotees always can't do things because they don't have money. So let me bring money and then everything can happen. But as Prabhu was saying, it can't. It doesn't work like that. We normally get absorbed in that. And then when we give ourselves to Krishna consciousness, and especially in the association of devotees, as he was saying, that we come to the temple, programs, associate with devotees, that's such a powerful influence in our lives. Because ultimately, Krishna is meant to influence us fully. That's what means taking shelter. We have many influences in our lives: media, family, friends, everything, work, everything influences us. Every experience we have influences us. What we are trying to do by taking shelter of Krishna is get Krishna to influence us fully and no other influence. That is what we are trying to do. But when we work, when we do things, these other influences naturally creep in, and it affects our ability to be Krishna consciousness, be Krishna conscious. Therefore, it is such a dangerous thing for us to do. So taking association of the devotees helps in solidify Krishna's influence on us. And you mentioned another thing, very important, that when we come to Krishna consciousness, when we come to the temple, when we come in the association of devotees, not to just be spectators, that for the next 50 years, I'll come to the Sunday program, I'll listen to the class, I'll go home. No, we have to be practitioners. We have to practice the process. We have to serve the devotees, serve Krishna at the temple, in our homes. So as Prabhu is saying, when the door is broken, get involved and fix it. It's an opportunity for us to engage with Krishna, engage with Krishna's devotees, engage in Krishna's service. That's what the temples are there for, to give us an opportunity to associate with devotees and serve Krishna. That is the purpose. Otherwise, there's no need to have the temple if we can't do those things. So it's wonderful that we come, but we shouldn't be spectators for a long time. Maybe the first 2 or 3 times we're not very familiar with everything. We can be spectators and decide, do we like this or not? After that, we must participate. There's no reason for someone to feel more at home here than another person. All of us should be equally at home, because this is Krishna's home, and Krishna is our Father. And Srila Prabhupada built this house for all of us to live in. And so we should all feel empowered to come and serve Krishna and want to come and serve Krishna. And use the temple, take advantage of the temple and the association of devotees to serve. And that's how our shelter of other things, our shelter of material facility will decrease. Because we'll take more shelter of Krishna, we'll take more shelter of devotees, we'll become more invested in devotees and Krishna than we are invested in other things. And that's how we will make advancement in spiritual life. Thank you very much for those contributions, Prabhu. Swarup Damodar Prabhu, I was praying that you'll say something, and now my prayer has been answered without me putting you on the spot. I was tempted to just ask you, but this is much better.
Thank you, Ramvijay Prabhu, for that wonderful presentation, and to the devotees who shared their realizations. I wanted to share 2 thoughts, one stemming from Balaram Prabhu's points, that when we think that let me work hard, let me get the material acquisitions that are required to help the Krishna consciousness movement expand in this way and that way, and later on, I'll get fully into it. It's a subtle way of saying that I'm in control and not Krishna. Because Krishna, if he wants, he'll execute it, he'll do it. But what Krishna really wants is us, right here and right now. So it's a subtle way of thinking that I'm in control when we are really not in control. So instead of, yes, we should do our duties diligently in the material world in a detached way, but allow Krishna to take control. Let him take control. The other thing is, as devotees, sometimes we can fall into this trap, and this trap could be clarified with this question, that if Krishna were to come to you today, we can all ask ourselves this question. If Krishna were to come to us today and ask us, give us a choice. Okay, I'm here now. I'm ready to take you back home. Right now. I just want to do it. Come with me right now. We're going back to Goloka Vrindavan. That's choice 1. Choice 2 is, I'm here now. I'm giving you this facility. At the end of this life, I am definitely taking you back to Godhead. I am definitely. And from now until then, you can fulfill all your desires. Whatever you want, you fulfill it. What choice are you going to make? The option where he tells you, I'm taking you back right now, or I'm definitely taking you back at the end of your life, but you have all this time. All your material desires will be fulfilled. Which one are we going to choose? Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sir Damodar Prabhu, for those perspectives. Balaram Prabhu? Should we ask the question? Oh, no.
Hare Krishna. So I'm actually not going to answer that question. But I just wanted to comment on the concept of Yukta Vairagya and how powerful that is. And a practical application of that is that as part of the InReach committee under the Sri Sri Radha Ratna temple, this is one of the things that we actually have in mind. And when we sent out a link to the congregational database, that was the whole idea, to be able to get some idea of what skills, what abilities devotees have, so that in an organized way, we could then offer service. So in this way, one's life can be dovetailed, one's material activities, material skills and abilities can be dovetailed with Krishna consciousness. And in this way, you become more greatly absorbed. And when you are more greatly absorbed through using all your faculties in the service of Krishna, then maybe that is one of the ways in which the quality of our chanting could also improve. So I want to use this opportunity to encourage devotees. Now that we've spoken about it, we are going to make another attempt to send out the link once again to the database. We've already looked at the information provided by those devotees that have registered on the database, and we thank you greatly because now we have a better idea of what you have to offer. So very soon, once this database grows, you will be hearing from different teams that we have at the temple, and they will be offering you opportunities for engaging in ways that you will feel comfortable because you will be using what you have and what you know in the service of Krishna. We will be looking forward to that. Thank you. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Balaram Prabhu. The Jai Sachinandan Prabhu at the back. Thank you. Oh,
Thank you, Hare
oh
Krishna.
sorry.
No problem. I was just thinking that we need to develop an attitude of gratitude, meaning that we should be grateful for all the facilities that Krishna has given us, whether material or anything like that, so we don't become attached to him. So, like you say, we need to be renounced. And then we have to remind ourselves that we don't own anything. So if we don't have that attitude of gratitude, we're not going to progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, understanding that everything we have is given to us by Krishna, we are taking care of it on behalf of Krishna. So there's no room for attachment to it, thinking that it's ours, and that when we lose it, we don't feel despondent. Jai Sachinandan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Ramvijay Prabhu. It's a very touching story. Maybe Swarab Damodar Prabhu can verify this story. It's about Balaram and his little son, Hayendra. A few years ago, I think it was coming close to his birthday, and I think his father promised him a bicycle. Of course, for every boy, that's a dream, isn't it? To have a bicycle. So then he came to the temple, and then he said, "No, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to take care of Krishna on your birthday." He said, "Okay." And he nodded. He was very happy about that. And I thought that was such a touching.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Truly amazing. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai.